it's me, Nathalie.
And me, Issy.
And today we have a jam-packed episode lined up for you with lots of amazing guests. It's all very exciting.
That's right. This episode is the first in our new mini-series where we explore the work being carried out at the UCL Communication Clinic.
We'll be talking to those who work at the clinic as well as to the individuals the clinic aims to support.
Today, we're focusing on the Progressive Aphasia Speech and Language Therapy Clinic and the experience of those with Primary Progressive Aphasia, or PPA if we want to use a fancy SLT abbreviation.
First, we'll be chatting to UCL's Dr. Anna Volkmer and 3 students who have been running the clinic alongside Anna, discussing the work they do and the highlights of their time on placement at the Communication Clinic.
Next, we are very lucky to be joined on the podcast by 2 people with PPA, Mike and Geoff, as well as 3 partners of those with PPA, Mike's wife Jane, Geoff's wife Maggie and Yin, all who attended a conversation camp run by the clinic.
They'll be giving valuable insights into their lived experience of PPA and how speech and language therapists can provide the best support.
Finally, Anna is back alongside Rosemary Townsend, an SLT who is part of the PPA service at Dyscover, to talk about the first ever PPA Awareness Day taking place on Friday the 4th of April.
Busy, right? Well, we better get started. Let's hear from Anna and our student peers, Anna, Tristan and Diellza. Welcome everyone to the Giving Voice podcast. It's so lovely to have you all here today. Thought we'd start first of all, Anna, with probably the most important question in terms of what makes primary progressive aphasia different to other forms of aphasia.
Well, that's a very important question. So primary progressive aphasia does what it says on the tin. So it is a progressive variant of a language difficulty. Mm-hmm. So people present with language difficulties, so the aphasia, that's the main, so the primary symptom of their disease, and it's getting progressively worse. Okay. And primary progressive aphasia is actually describes 3 main variants that we know of, and they are what we would call language-led dementias. So while typically aphasia is associated with stroke or brain injury, so it's typically an acute onset aphasia, which means that people are then their trajectory of recovery is recovery. They're going upwards or maintaining a function. The people we're working with are getting progressively worse. They're declining. And then they're developing other cognitive symptoms. And that's probably the most medical model. But actually, with that comes a very different emotional journey.
Yes, and a very different intervention style, I imagine, as well.
Exactly.
So could you tell us a little bit about the Progressive Aphasia Speech and Language Therapy Clinic?
Yeah, of course. So the clinic has been running only since last year. So last year we ran a intensive conversation camp,
cool.
which was an intensive clinic. So we ran it for 4 weeks. We ran 2 weeks with people with PPA and 2 weeks with people with stroke aphasia. Yeah. And we had students. And that worked so well, we were inspired to try running it this way. So we have it once a week. Yeah. And it started in October, obviously at the beginning of the student placement block, and it will run to the end of March. Yeah. And we get referrals from speech therapists all over the UK for us to do speech therapy with people with PPA when they can't access it or they've reached the end of their normal therapy block, or when there just isn't any in their local services.
And how big is the team at the clinic?
So at the moment, there's me. Yeah. And then we have 3 student speech and language therapists. Yeah. And it's just us, and we've been working together to deliver the intervention. There will be another intensive conversation camp clinic block. Yep. And that again will be a block of placement. So there'll be 2 students and there'll be a few more therapists involved with that.
Wow, amazing. So interesting. And in terms of, you say it's quite a small team, obviously, with you and the students. So are there other professionals you liaise with as well?
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, the referrals can come from all across the UK from speech and language therapists. So we receive those referrals with a bit of information. So there's 1 or 2 people referred themselves, which is also, I think that's really important, that you should be able to find your own therapist.
Yeah, absolutely.
But of course, people with language difficulties find that hard to do in the first place. So mostly it's been the therapist who we've been able to chat to. I also work in the Cognitive Disorders Clinic, which is part of the National Hospital at UCLH. And so on a Monday morning, we overlap with that clinic insofar as we work out what's happening in that. That's a diagnostic clinic. So we attend the pre-clinic meeting online, work out what input I need to give there, and then the students have all attended the clinic, but it also helps the students see the journey through the disease progression from diagnosis to therapy and onwards.
That makes sense. So in terms of the referral process then, would they all go via the clinic to begin with, or no?
No, so that's a completely separate thing.
Okay.
So the hospital clinic is a diagnostic clinic where people come from GPs or other neurologists. They're referred to the clinic, which is an NHS-based clinic.
Yeah.
Our clinic is non-NHS.
Right. Yeah.
It's part of the university. So we don't get any referrals directly from that diagnostic clinic.
Ah, okay.
It's all from speech therapists.
And would any family members ever refer to you?
They can do, and if I'm honest, probably two of the two self-referrals may have been written by family members or co-written. Yeah, so they can too.
Oh, wow. It sounds like a really amazing opportunity for students as well to have
Definitely.
those two sort of sides as well.
Absolutely. And I think what's really neat is we're using some of the data to inform some of our research projects. So,
that's really interesting.
We're collecting lots of outcome measures, which is really important to see how intervention delivery in a clinical sense actually overlaps with the research work we're doing, because we have to do research on interventions that are implementable. So I think the clinic is almost like this middle point between research and the NHS. So you can kind of see that overlap.
Yeah,
amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hannah, could you tell us what interventions you use with clients attending the clinic?
Yeah, sure. We usually offer 2 different intervention pathways. The first is communication partner training, and we would invite a family member or a friend of the client to come in and be involved in the sessions, and we'd work on finding out what's helpful or not helpful for their conversations.
Okay.
And then reflecting on how they can implement strategies to have better conversations. And the other pathway is script training or script therapy, which is where clients would create a script about a topic they enjoy talking about.
Yeah.
So that might be a holiday or talking about a wedding, a story, something like that. And we'd write down the script and then practice together reading it. And then we'd ask the client to try and remember it. And it really helps them to kind of use as a starting point to then become more fluent and more confident with. And then we can build on that into more conversations.
That's so cool. And how long roughly does it take to write a script?
It can really vary. Some people come in knowing exactly what they want to include. And some people, we might help them, prompting them, asking, like if it's a holiday, what did you do? What was your favourite thing? Who were you with? So we'd usually aim to have a minimum of 3 scripts per person. And that might take an entire session or 2.
And so both of these types of intervention, have you had experience of them on placement?
Yes. It's a student-run clinic, so all 3 of us take part in running the sessions. We run individual and group sessions, and we really enjoy taking part in them and supporting the clients.
That's amazing. And Tris, have you seen any positive changes from the therapy you've been providing?
Yeah, absolutely. Through the script therapy clinic, we've seen increased fluency, perhaps more nuggets of information put into stories, and also with the better conversations and communication partner therapy, clients really understanding the barriers and facilitators to what makes a really good conversation for them. Yeah. But also things like increased hope as well.
Wow.
If someone's in their corner, they feel a bit more empowered. Have a better understanding of their aphasia and their speech, and also building relations with one another. There's clients from all over the country, as far as London, Scotland, who may never have met anyone else with their type of aphasia, and now they've got that shared experience every week.
That's incredible. What an amazing opportunity it is for them to come.
quite powerful, really.
Yeah, really.
No, that's so interesting that you have so many clients from all over the country as well. I didn't realise that it expanded beyond London as well.
Yeah, so some people come into the sessions, and we have sessions on Zoom as well for both script training and communication partner therapy.
Oh, wow. Really interesting. So cool. And Diellza, on a more serious note, has there been any challenging aspects of the placement for you so far?
So I haven't been in the clinic for very long, but something that I have picked up on is, for me personally, this group of clients is very different to people that I'm used to. And it means that I'm having to change my communication style a lot. And actually, we were discussing this earlier, and Tristan made a comment about how we're teaching communication skills to others whilst changing our own communication.
Yeah,
and I think that was
true.
actually a very good way to put it, because for me, I feel like I speak very fast, and I try to get the point of the conversation across very quickly. And this group of clients, it's the complete opposite. You have to speak a lot slower and make sure that you're articulating yourself very well. And it doesn't always feel very natural. And I noticed today in one session, I was speaking very slowly, and I just felt like this wasn't me, and it just felt very different.
Yeah.
So I think that it's practicing that patience and having to be very conscious about your communication style whilst delivering therapy, and observing how the therapy is going. It's quite a lot to think about all in one.
Yes, I can imagine. And your speech is almost your identity, isn't it, really? So I can imagine why you wouldn't feel like yourself sometimes, deliberately trying to slow down.
Yeah.
And what about the, as Anna said, it's quite emotional because it's progressive aphasia. So how have you coped with that sort of more emotional side?
I think a lot of us, when we hear anything emotional, we actually were talking about something on the way here. We just make sure that we're checking in with each other, and we talk about like the different options that the clients have. But if I'm honest, I haven't had too many experiences just yet.
No, that's fair enough.
For the last question, we'd love to ask you all what your favourite moment of placements have been so far.
For me, I think it's seeing people laughing during their conversations and saying how much they enjoy them now, and you can really see that change from when we first met them, and that's especially evident in the communication partner training groups.
Yeah, that's so great.
Personally, I really like there's really beautiful moments in the script group as well. People who are wrestling with their memory changing and their language changing, and realising that with even a couple of weeks of rehearsal, talking about things that are really important to them, they're able to say a lot more and really see that change happening quite fast. And their family members are seeing that as well. And you just see some really genuine smiles, a lot of self-belief starting to creep in once the results start coming in as well.
That's amazing.
I would say that we're giving the clients an opportunity for something to do in quite an interactive way, because a lot of them say that they feel lonely or they don't have that many people to talk to.
Yeah.
And actually you realise that the therapy session is a part of their day, which probably is quite exciting for them. And the way that we communicate them definitely impacts the level of excitement that they might feel during those sessions.
It sounds like you've all had some amazing moments on placement and already have been making such a difference to the lives of people, which is incredible.
Yeah, like Izzy said, it sounds amazing how you're actually leading these groups as well. That's such a good experience as students that many would be really lucky to have. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much for having us.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Giving Voice podcast. It's so great to have you here with us today. To begin with, we'd love to just find out a little bit about yourselves. So to begin with, Mike, I'll start with you. And could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your aphasia, and any therapy that you had before you came to the UCL clinic?
I worked in the USA for 25 years. I was a major player in the
oil and gas industry.
Was a consultant, and I worked in PLC company. I worked in Kuwait, Nigeria, Russia, and all
China.
I walked in the Dallas, Alaska, California, 18 years in Alaska, Chicago, and China. I have enormous amount of air miles. Before that, I joined IBM for 9 years. 9 years, it's rank Xerox International, 40 countries worldwide, and I ended up with 170 people reporting to me.
Wow.
Yeah. So I spoke to the engineers, the subject with innovation. Sorry.
3,000 people.
2,000 people. I
went to Lucerne.
Went to Lucerne to get my service award, and
That was the first time you'd flown.
Yeah, it was the first time I'd flown. So I'm holder of the degree in science, and I graduated earlier in my career. 20 years old. I worked in Moscow and Russia, local relationship with the
Where are you from?
Yeah.
A meeting with Arco and worked on the Alaska pipeline.
Yeah. Alaska pipeline, which runs from the Juneau all the way up to 600 miles.
To the North Slope.
Yeah.
Right. Go on to your aphasia.
It's uncurable, so I understand.
Little step at a time.
A little step at a time.
What about any therapy you had before you came to UCL? Nothing?
Nothing.
Thank you so much for sharing, Mike. And it sounds like you've had such an incredible career and traveled and lived in so many places.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Then, Geoff, I'll come to you. Could you tell us a bit about yourself, your aphasia, and any therapy you had before you came to the UCL clinic?
Right. I'm 85 and retired for several years, and I was diagnosed 2 years ago, but the symptoms had appeared 7 or 8 years before. And when I mentioned it to the GP, he said it's probably hearing, and sent me for 2 hearing tests, separated by 6 months. So that found that my hearing was not affected, and subsequently, after 4 years, we paid for a private consultant, and he sent me to the neurology specialists who confirmed the NF variant of PPA. And that's, I have not not much therapy, because the local speech therapists didn't know about PPA, but although she was very interested to learn I felt I was teaching her rather than me. And that's, yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Summary, yeah.
That's so interesting to hear that your local speech therapist didn't know about PPA. And like as a student speech and language therapist who we have learned about PPA, it seems incredible that actually there has been speech and language therapists and maybe still are who don't know about PPA, which just shows the importance of raising awareness.
She was aware of that.
Okay.
But she wasn't trained.
Ah, okay, I see. And so she hadn't met anyone before who had PPA yet.
Yeah.
So you were like her first person she worked with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. It was so interesting. And we're also lucky to have the partners as well on the podcast today. So I'd also love to hear from all of you about yourselves. So let's start with you, Jane. Could you tell us a bit about yourself and also your experience of having a partner with PPA?
Okay. I worked in my career as a secretary, an administrative assistant, or whatever we call them now, for some major companies. The last one was Rank Xerox International, is where I met Mike. And within 6 weeks of knowing him, he'd been offered this job in America. So I guess I threw caution to the wind and we went together, or I went a few months afterwards, didn't I, when I worked my notice out. And then we just had our own company and traveled a lot and came back to the UK in 2000. Continued to work a little bit, but not a lot, and traveled and just generally enjoyed life. We like living in Hammersmith, and we just enjoy being it. And it's changed a lot. But traveling now with Mike, because he gets a bit anxious about things. So my job is to make things easier, which means it's more expensive, obviously. And it's just trying to keep things on an even keel so we don't, and try not to do too much to all the time. So spread things out. You know, if we have appointments for this and have a day off, and appointments for that and have a day off. But generally, we're fine. We cope. Mike still he cooks all the dinners. That's important to me. I don't
very jealous.
Goes shopping still, so and independent. So yeah, we have a laugh sometimes. We have arguments sometimes, but there we are. That's normal married life, I guess. We just had our 38th anniversary.
Congratulations. How lovely.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
But it certainly changes your life when you you understand when suddenly something happens that you don't even anticipate or expect. It makes a huge difference to your life. But you've just got to cope with it, basically.
It must have been such a shock when you first got the diagnosis.
It was.
And Maggie, I'll come to you next. So could you tell us a bit about yourself and your experience of having a partner with PPA?
Yeah, like Geoff, I was a journalist. We met when we were both working on The Guardian. I finally stopped work completely just over a year ago. and decided I had worked long enough, because in a few weeks' time I'll be 80. But it means now I have to say I used to be a journalist, which of course I really didn't want to have to say. But that meant for both of us, words were important. Words were our tools. Geoff became aware that he was having problems long before I noticed anything. But then when he mentioned it, I could see that he was taking a bit longer. This is the fine line between, as you get older, you forget words anyway. So the line between what is natural aging and forgetting words and what is PPA. He realised it was something more than just aging. I also noticed he was using his hands more when he spoke, really to support what he was trying to say. So he was, and still does now, I think even more, uses his hands a lot. So that's when I realised too, that there was something going on. And to begin with, it's not too difficult. He's just slower at getting words out, and you learn very quickly just to wait. I mean, the key thing is not to jump in and supply the words and finish his sentences. But it gets harder as he's losing more of a speed of getting words out, finding the right words, and making mistakes with words. And he still nearly always, he always knew immediately and could correct himself. Now he doesn't always. So is learning, it does change your relationship. You're learning to adjust, but at least it's slow. I feel somebody whose partner has a heart attack or a stroke, instantly their lives have changed. But with PPA, it's gradual, so you can adjust as you go along. But it does get frustrating, and you do have to call on degrees of patience with it.
Definitely.
Yeah. And Geoff is increasingly dependent on me. We have just moved house, a massive downsize to future-proof ourselves. And people say moving house is one of the most stressful things you can do. But I would say moving house with a partner who has PPA is a whole other level of stress, because the bottom line is with you. Absolutely every decision, you have to make sure you've remembered, you haven't missed something. Even though Jeff's able to do it quite a lot, you still have the bottom line responsibility for making it happen. So it has been a stressful time for both of us, the move, but absolutely the right thing to do. And another thing I say, everybody says carers must take care of themselves, and we know that, and we do. But what happens if Geoff has a hospital appointment, say, on the morning of my Pilates class, then obviously the Pilates goes. As much as you do take care of yourself, your needs come second. And that's fine, that's the way it is. But I can see increasingly that sort of thing is going to happen more often. So it changes your life. Yes, a PPA diagnosis just changes everything.
Absolutely. And as you said, it's not just the person with the diagnosis who's affected, it's actually, your family, your friends, your partner, it's everyone. And as you said, it's interesting to hear and sad, because obviously language is so important to everyone anyway, isn't it, to make everyday decisions and just go about your day. But the fact that you're both journalists, it's such a big part of your identity as well. So thank you for sharing that. And finally, Yin, I'd love to hear about yourself, also about your partner, because obviously they're not with us on the podcast today, and your experience of having a partner with PPA.
Yeah. Hello. I'm Yin. My partner, so I'm the carer, and unfortunately, as you said, my partner can't be with us. Unfortunately, he's progressed so much now that he can't actually speak and actually even concentrate when he's actually in a conversation or even sitting with people. So apologies that he's not here.
No.
My partner's American, and I'm from UK. We both live in Switzerland now. We were working in Switzerland, now we're both retired in Switzerland. The key challenges of actually being in Switzerland is the official language is not English. Yeah. So for a condition like impacting the speech, it's so important that you can speak the mother tongue. So in Switzerland, it's French, German, or Italian. So I would say that the main challenge we have is actually finding people who, first of all, can speak English so that we can actually understand. What happened with my partner was he actually started noticing that he had some problems with speech back in 2017. And he even says that even it could have been 2016. Language started becoming very effortful. He's very used to speaking in public. He speaks, he gives talks about his subject with 100, 200 people, and it's not an issue. So when he came back once and he said he had a problem answering questions, for him that was very big because he loves interacting with people. So I thought that maybe it was just maybe he was nervous, but he said no, definitely he just got stumped, couldn't answer. So that was I think that was when I really thought that's changed. That's 2017. We then got the diagnosis in 2020. So it took 3 years. It was back and forth for a lot of testing, different types of testing, not hearing. One of them was not hearing, Geoff, but other tests. When we actually got the diagnosis in 2020, it was very much like what Jane had said. It was like, oh, he's got PPA and it's incurable and we can only monitor it, come back next year. So that was a real shock for us. Of course, that was in English, but again, we still had to go and find out a lot of information in English so that we could understand better.
Yeah.
One of the things that we did, and that was, thank goodness we had, luckily we connected with Anna. I mean, actually, first of all, it was Rosemary in Dyscover. I saw her in an internet, RDS, Dyscover, and very quickly Anna, because they're all interconnected. And because of that, I mean, what I would say is that broke down a lot of barriers, geographically, everything. So the experience of actually having them to actually explain to us in English, the acceptance was so important to actually say, okay, we accept diagnosis, we understand what it is now. That's the kind of experience we had. And because of that, we've been able to, progress with them. And our speech therapists in Switzerland also now, because of Anna and Rosemary, we've been able to actually get that connection going, that she also starts learning a lot. And it's growing in Switzerland now of understanding it.
Oh, incredible. That's so great that you managed to find Anna and Rosemary.
Yes.
I hadn't even thought
about a lifeline.
Yeah. You think about, online therapy and the importance of online, but just even far away within the UK, don't you? But you don't think about actually cross country, how important that is. Thank you so much for sharing it. So what stood out to me is actually how long it's taken to get that diagnosis from when you first notice it. I think it's so important that we talk about it today, because hopefully by raising more awareness about PPA, we can speed up that process between first noticing and actually getting the support you need.
As Nathalie said, thank you so much for sharing about your journeys. And Jane, I'm going to come to you with the next question. What therapy did you and Mike have in the UCL Conversation Camp?
Remembering, of course it's gone, what was it? Last May? No, nearly a year ago, wasn't it, Dana? The recording of conversations between us, even though it was painful at the time, because I find it's silly, ridiculous to try and force a conversation. But anyway, we managed. And then Anna played it back and did a few points and things. And that was really quite insightful, even though I got a total fit of the giggles.
Yeah.
The other thing I enjoyed, Mike, not so much, was the art process that we did. Everybody got enthusiastic and involved about it, which made it fun. You know, it doesn't mean to say because you go to something like this, it has to be serious all the time. It's to breathe and to let. Mike would have preferred something more with doing things with his hands.
Yeah.
He's excellent at fixing things, but not. You don't particularly. You're not arty, are you?
I don't like art. I don't like art. I was always conscious about art. Craft, I liked.
Yeah. Okay.
For the young age of 6.
Make things, model aeroplanes and stuff like that.
Wow.
And the other thing that was nice, I found useful, was when we split up into went to different partners and talked to other people, the other partners, and tried to find out something about their lifestyle, bearing in mind this was the first time we'd all met.
Yeah.
The group, I thought, got on famously. I mean, I thought we really gelled, and I felt very happy coming home. We were exhausted, especially the Zoom days. We were exhausted, but certainly felt as though we gained something from it.
Yeah, that's so lovely. And it sounds like you were not just gaining in terms of like therapy and maybe strategies that you could use, but also that kind of community or meeting other people and just maybe not feeling so isolated.
That's right. The sort of mental therapy that that you're not alone. You're not the only one going through this.
So important. And in the art therapy, what was it, kind of painting, drawing, what types of
we
things?
had this huge piece of paper right across the wall, and I can't remember the name. I'm sure Anna and Rosemary will be able to remember the name of this artist, and he'd just drawn one line in a coloured thing, and then everybody else got their own pen, whatever colour they wanted, yellow, green, whatever, and copied this line. And at the end of it, the whole sheet was covered, and it was really, I don't know whether they still have it. I thought it was brilliant, actually. It deserved to be hung somewhere.
That's amazing.
Yeah. No, it was good.
It sounds like the UCL Conversation Camp gave you such a great support and opportunities for different types of therapy and connections.
Yeah.
We've already sort of touched upon it, but about that sense of community. But Geoff and Maggie, what do you think the benefits were of working as part of that group and working with your partner as well?
Very similar to what Jane's been saying. Just being with other people with the same experience as yourself, it is comfortable, it's comforting, supportive. Other people, in fact, probably the only people who can understand what it's like for you, for either a carer or person with PPA, partly what you're going through. And you feel it was quite relaxed there. And you could say it's difficult. You don't have to put a good face on as you do for friends and relatives, you don't tell them the hard bits. You tell them how well things are going.
Yeah.
And you can, for a long period of time, just focus on PPA. So you do get to learn a lot about the condition. But as Jane said, it was shattering. We were absolutely exhausted at the end of it. Just the so much, I suppose, concentrating and focusing for such a long time. But again, as Jane said, we met some just lovely people, which is great. And people who do have an understanding of what your life is like.
Amazing.
Do you want to say something?
Yeah. Sharing problems with other couples with this similar problems, and the importance of the coffee break when we were able to download and relax. So I think the coffee breaks or lunch breaks were so important to weld the message together.
No, thank you, Geoff. That's great. I didn't realise that you would have had. I think perhaps could you tell us a bit actually about the structure of the conversation camps? Because it's lovely to hear about the coffee breaks you had in between and how it sounds like you said it sounded very intense and exhausting. So maybe how long was the conversation camp and what was it like?
It was 2 sessions in
2 weeks.
No, it was the day involved 2 sessions.
I can't remember exactly.
It was 2
and
2 days, yeah.
Yeah.
There are 2 days up there, then the rest of the week. Then the following week it was 2 days Zoom, and then 2 days up there.
That's right.
So yes. 2 days up there, 2 days Zoom, then 2 days Zooms and 2 days.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we went to lunch.
Highlights.
I'm trying to find a picture of the artwork. I'm not doing very well.
Oh, that's lovely.
The tea breaks, I would say, it was the students who did all the work.
That's right.
Bringing the tea and getting everybody's tea and coffee. And obviously an important part of their training is looking after us with tea and coffee.
No, that's lovely. That's so nice. It sounds like you really had such a good network with each other. And like you said, it's nice how the student speech and language therapists help facilitate that. And as you said, learn how to make the teas and coffees.
And we picked up tips from each other. Just when you're having plenty of time to have those conversations, somebody would mention something they'd found that would help, and you realise, yes, we can take that on board as well. So not the sort of thing that would come up perhaps in a structured training, but just little asides, incredibly helpful.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. That's something that you perhaps wouldn't think of when you think it's all about learning the techniques, learning the therapy, and then you go, but actually it's that time in between to chat with each other, share. It's amazing. Thank you.
I remember of the Anna session, so I remember all the words she said, but because I objectives, I've still come around and paused to Jane and my partner.
Partner.
That's great. You still remember the stuff you learned from
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Really,
Yeah.
really good. Oh, well, there we go.
Must have had a big impact on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so great.
And remember, Geoff, you picked up on Mike's what did you say? A start again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you got stuck, you went,
Yeah.
okay, start again.
I use that every day.
Do you?
Yeah.
Good. We'll send you a bill.
Yeah.
It's so lovely to hear that strategies that you were learning like last year, you still remember and are still using. It's
Yeah.
incredible. Going back to the topic of students, Yin, I'm going to come to you for the next question. What is one thing that student speech and language therapists should know about PPA?
Yeah, I mean, and that's really good because it kind of follows up with what Mike and everybody was saying, what we learned in the PPA camp.
Yeah.
I think what's really important for students, speech and speech therapists who are not familiar with PPA is they really have to change their mindset on setting goals and objectives.
Okay.
So that when Mike was saying how we started learning about objectives, it was so good in the camp because it was so customized for us. Important thing for a speech therapist is to understand that it's not about improvements anymore. So when they set the goals and objectives, don't look for things for people with PPA and the carers for improvements. Yeah, then that's not the big win. The big win is really about maintaining, facilitating that communication, maintaining it, and also trying to slow down that progression as much as we can. Yeah. So I think that is one of the key things I would say students or language therapists who doesn't understand PPA.
Yeah.
It's the observation, understanding the people, and understanding that it's a customized approach.
Yeah.
So when they ask us to set objectives, or people, carers and people with PPA, to set objectives, that has to be really well thought out. Because it can be so disheartening if it's not done and it's just by rote. You know, oh, these are the things that worked in the past, it worked with other people, it should work. It doesn't. Everybody is so different.
Yeah, so having that person-centered objective, working with the people that you're working with to create those goals together.
Yeah. And then I think really the final thing about, so going back to the PPA camp, of what we learned is this way of being able to give professional feedback. And that was the lovely thing with the PPA camp, is that we were videoed. I don't know if that was mentioned.
Yeah.
The communication of both partners communicating, that is the observation part that's really important, because everybody communicates differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what works for one doesn't work for the other.
Yes.
So that videoing and then having a professional feedback, which worked really well, because there are some things that you can't say to your partner and vice versa.
Yeah.
So having a professional and having a student there with fresh eyes to actually see it and follow it through was so useful. And then getting peer reviewed by, of course, people who really understand it, with carers and people with PPA, looking at, at certain parts, discussing it. So helpful. So I don't know if that answered your question about what students and language therapists needs to do. It's really that mindset has to change of, it's not about improvements. It's really customization and maintaining, facilitating communication any way that works.
Yeah, no, that's So helpful, thank you. And Geoff and Maggie, is there anything else that you think student speech and language therapists should know about PPA?
One thing I wanted to say, very similar to what Yin's been saying, is, and I'm very pleased to see that you're getting training in PPA, because I suspect that older speech and language therapists probably didn't. They'd have been taught about stroke aphasia.
Yeah.
And stroke aphasia and PPA are so different. With somebody with stroke aphasia, you can be helping them to regain speech and get better. But PPA, it doesn't. It only gets worse. As Yin said, that whole mindset of understanding.
Yeah.
So you're really helping people hold on to conversation for as long as possible. So in a few years' time, they can still say, "How are you?
Yeah.
Can I have a cup of tea, please? Good morning."
Yeah.
It's maintaining.
I love you.
Oh. I've got to get Lou to say that.
I'm not being
Well done,
rude.
Geoff.
And then, of course, speaking clearly to them, plainly, not covering your mouth with your hand while you're speaking, even not switching subjects suddenly. There's, it's just, or you need to just forget anything you learn about stroke aphasia when you're dealing with PPA, because it is just very different. And as Yen said, everybody is very different as well with PPA. No two people are going to be the same.
Yeah. So it's really about having that good education for speech and language therapists about what actually PPA is,
absolutely,
how it affects people, and also just bearing in mind that everyone is so different, and to be seeing someone, when you see someone for the first time, to look at them, to see them as an individual, and to be finding out from them what are their challenges, what makes, that's so helpful. Thank you so much.
Geoff?
I want to stress that everyone is different, and also build confidence or of the people with PPA, because it needs confidence to interrupt a conversation and speak so slowly. So
and that's one thing I have learnt, to interrupt other people until people understand they need to wait for Geoff to speak. It's just natural that they fill the gaps. So as a carer, you have to learn the confidence to say, "Please stop talking, please let Geoff finish." It's just one of the other things you learn as you go.
Thank you for sharing.
Amazing, thank you. And also thank you, Geoff. I think that was the sweetest moment we've ever had probably on the podcast so far.
Yes.
I wish we could end on that, but we've got one other question, which I think is also really important. So what is the most important thing that speech and language therapists do for people affected by PPA? And I'll come to you first, Jane and Mike.
I think the speech therapists we have has come up with the project for writing a cookbook, but everyone is different. So everyone is different from the other person. So I've book the referred to the recipes. So she's going to have me detailed the recipes on I cook the amazing speed.
Yeah. So it's almost like she helps with projects as well as something to talk about. You know, come up with I just leave, she comes here and I just leave them to it. And, you know, I look out and I can see them, which is good.
Yeah, that's lovely. And like you said, Mike, it's personalized to each person, isn't it? So for you, it's your cookbook, and that's lovely. That's so nice that it's useful for you and it's something that you're interested in.
Yeah.
And I'll open it up to everyone else as well. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add about the most important thing that speech and language therapists do for people with PPA and also their carers and relatives as well?
I think what Geoff just said in giving the person with PPA confidence.
Yeah.
It's sort of a broad subject, difficult to sort of pin down or explain. But I think bottom line, if they've lost confidence, then everything is even harder. With confidence, things are easier and you have more able to make an effort to keep going. So I think that was the one thing, yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, I think that confidence is such a big thing that's not actually often thought about as the first thing, but it's fundamental, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have two things that I would add on what was really important with our speech therapists in general. The very beginning at the diagnosis, because the speech is the first thing that gets impacted, it almost seems natural to be given a speech therapist because the speech is impacted. So I would say that the speech therapist, because it's probably the first healthcare professional that is looking at you in terms of treatment, and you can say treatment, or giving you some hope. I would say it's like a lifeline in thinking, okay, it's not curable, but there is some therapy that you can go to. And it actually starts helping you accept the diagnosis, because I think people underestimate how difficult it is to accept that diagnosis. So the speech therapist is the first one that actually gives that understanding, and then finally the acceptance, in our case. The second thing that I think is really important is that the speech therapist needs to follow, and we're very lucky, our speech therapist has followed us through the journey. The speech therapist is very good at being a barometer. So they can actually see where it's going. And because of where it's going, they're the sort of like the glue of saying, okay, it may be time for now, maybe physio, because now the movements might be something, because they've observed where it came from. So I think that those are the two things I would say. They're the lifeline. And I may be being a bit exaggerating, but it was a lifeline for us at that time. And secondly, I would use the word barometer. It helps us really follow the progression of the condition and what is needed.
Lovely. No, I think that's a great way. I think that's lovely for our listeners to hear. A lifeline and a barometer. What a nice way to to end the podcast. Thank you so much. It was so insightful, and we really, really loved hearing your stories. And thank you for taking the time to share that with us.
Yes, thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today. Hi, Rosemary and Anna. Thank you for joining us for the third part of the podcast. We'd love to hear more about the PPA Awareness Day. So to begin with, how did you come up with the idea of the PPA Awareness Day?
Well, thank you, Izzy, for that question. So my role at UCL is doing research on developing interventions basically for people with primary progressive aphasia and dementia and their family members, as well as teaching all the speech students and doing clinical work. And as part of my research, I was talking to a group of people with PPA and their family members. We call that patient and public involvement. And they said to me, look, it's all well and good that you're doing research on interventions to show they work, but actually getting to speech therapy is hard. Not enough people know about A, primary progressive aphasia, and B, the role of the speech and language therapist. And they were talking about not just people themselves living with the disease, they were talking about doctors, nurses, other healthcare professionals, and the wider public as well, in actual. So we tried initially, we thought, well, we should develop a care pathway, which is, I guess, a formal pathway that guides speech therapists or healthcare professionals to know what happens at what stages of a disease. So what should we be delivering when? But actually what we realized was that it's much simpler than that. We need to get this message out there that people with primary progressive aphasia experience difficulties with speech, language, and communication, and speech therapy is the main treatment for that. So this is how we coined this idea of the PPA Awareness Day.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a really important day and so needed.
The first ever PPA Awareness Day, nationally and internationally.
Wow.
It's a big deal. And can you tell us what you have lined up to raise awareness of PPA?
Yes, sure. I think it's also worth saying that though Anna and I are leading on this and have initiated the PPA Awareness Day, we want the event to be very collaborative. We both work very collaboratively. We believe that that's the fundamental part of helping more people with PPA is to be joined up in the way that we work. So we're very pleased to be able to have collaborated with the Royal College of Speech and Language Therapists. We've got their backing, Rare Dementia Support, and also what we want to do is to involve and include people who have all sorts of different roles and perspectives of PPA in this. So we are including and involving people like you, students, other speech and language therapists from the national and international networks, neurologists, but probably most importantly, people living with PPA. So we've got them really sort of front and center of this awareness day. And we've heard from them already how complex this condition is, how sort of multifaceted, and how different it is for everybody. So we want to reflect that in the Awareness Day so that people don't just know what PPA is, but also how different it is and also what we need to do about it, crucially what speech and language therapy can do. So we have a main event, which is on the 4th of April, which is a live webinar that people can sign up to through Eventbrite, and we can probably share that through
Absolutely, we can put that in the podcast description.
To attend, so that's an hour podcast on the 4th of April at 12 o'clock midday. But we also felt that we wanted to lead up to this with more information and sort of helping, gather momentum. And so we've been doing that since the end of January. So we've got 9 Fridays when we are posting something new and different, which could be this podcast. That's one example. We've done other podcasts with Dementia Researcher and with the Brainy Speech and Language Therapist. That's another neuro-speechy podcast. And we also have interviews with people with PPA. We have a lovely set of poems, poetry reading by a man who is a poet who has PPA.
Oh, that's lovely.
And we are also we're sharing a whole set of speech bubbles. We're asking people to fill in a little speech bubble what they feel speech and language therapy gives them, or why it's important for people with PPA. And we also have an event at Westminster at the Houses of Parliament. And that's, again, a great opportunity to get the word out to a whole load of other people, hopefully influencers and policymakers. So we've got the key thing is to be looking at social media. We're sharing this on social media. We also have the information on the website, International SLP's website, and people can sign up for weekly updates as well.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you. And I'll make sure that we have all that information as well so that people can get involved.
I was going to add a couple of things that we've got so many things lined up. We've got our UK Speech and Language Therapy PPA Network event. We have an online webinar. That is also one of the events in one of the weeks. We've got a book launch as well in one of the weeks.
Oh, wow.
And I must actually emphasize the Westminster event, which is going to be, Rosemary's really led on this with Dyscover. And Dyscover is the charity that Rosemary works for, who are one of the only third sector organisations who really provide any support for people with PPA. So we're really excited to be going to Westminster to really flag the needs of people with PPA and their family members.
Yeah, the Westminster event sounds like an amazing opportunity.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're doing so many things. It's incredible. What are some of the ways that SLTs and student SLTs can help to raise awareness of PPA or kind of get involved?
We just mentioned that we've got this weekly email update, and people can sign up to the weekly email update by contacting us, and we can provide our contact details to be to include in the webinar information. This webinar information, but we also, as we mentioned, is we'd love people to sign up for the webinar.
Yeah.
We really would love people to come along to the webinar, hear about the event, tell other people about the webinar, share the information about the webinar. And not just in the UK. We should emphasize, we had a meeting last night, actually, where we anticipated, Rosemary and I, this would be very UK focused. We didn't really anticipate such an enthusiastic response, and we've had speech and language therapy colleagues from our international speech therapy PPA network have asked if they could run events internationally. So we're going to have events in all around the world, almost like a set of fireworks going off. So at midday, I think in most countries, hopefully all around the world. So spread the word, not just within the UK, but outside the UK too, if that's okay.
Yes. Wow, that's amazing that it's going to be across the world, that it's not just UK focused.
Actually, and I should mention that sometimes it's harder to say sign up to this webinar or follow these emails. We should mention we have a Blue Sky account, an X account, and a LinkedIn account that we're using so we're using our personal professional accounts, Anna Volkmer and Rosemary Townsend, through X and Blue Sky and LinkedIn, but we have a PPA Awareness Day account on Blue Sky.
Okay, that's great.
Perfect. Amazing. And just to end really the whole episode, I mean, we've learned so much today about people with PPA and the work that the students are doing at the UCL Communication Clinic as well. So to end, Rosemary, I believe you have some comments from family members that are talking about the benefits of the conversation support offered. So I'd love if you could share those with us.
Sure, yeah. I was delighted to be part of the Convo Camp, the intensive Convo Camp last year, and hope to be again this year. But I also regularly use communication partner training in my work at Dyscover, sometimes with groups, but also often with just the couple. And as part of my evaluation of the service, I often ask people for feedback. So I just, have some quotes. One of the things, and these are very typical of the sorts of things people often say, one of the benefits really includes the increased understanding of the condition. When you're doing communication partner training, people tend to report understanding it better. And one of the partners I work with said, I thought my husband only had difficulty speaking, but now I know his understanding is affected too. Another thing that leads on from that is that people learn practical skills. So this is what we're trying to do, is to help them adapt and modify their communication strategies to support their partner. So another person said, we've gained insight and learned alternative ways of communicating and relating. And I like that because it's going beyond communication. It's about relationships. Really? We heard of that, didn't we, in the interviews earlier? And we also heard about the benefits of doing it as a group. And so another comment I have here is being able to discuss the challenges with others reduces stress. We feel less alone. And I think Maggie said how comforting it was. And that these are the only people who really know what it's like. And then finally, in fact, similar to what Yin said about the sort of continuity of support, that often is something people remark upon. Support from an SLT who knows us is invaluable. The importance of having that really deep knowledge of the people we're working with and how helpful that can be in supporting them in this way.
That's lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that, Rosemary. I think, like you said, it highlights the SLT can provide that personal experience, that increased understanding of PPA, and really just support from a lot of angles. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, that's it from us. We hope you learned a lot about primary progressive aphasia and found Mike, Geoff, Jane, Maggie and Yin's stories as touching and as thought-provoking as we did.
We'll make sure to add all the important links for the PPA Awareness Day and the website for the Progressive Aphasia Speech and Language Therapy Clinic to the episode description if you want to know more.
See you next time, and keep your eyes peeled for the next Communication Clinic episode.
Bye.